Makes it more important. So we really appreciate you being here with us. We will start with welcome remarks. We are very fortunate to be hosted by the permanent mission of the Federal Republic of Germany. Our meeting will begin with remarks from the Deputy Permanent Representative, His Excellency Mr. Thomas Sennhausen. We'll move on to remarks from the Executive Director of the MPTFO, Mr. Alan Udeu. We are very lucky to have His Excellency, the Permanent Representative of Mali, Mr. Issa Kontourou, and we'll finish with remarks from Ms. Helena Fraser, who's the Director of Program and Policy at the UN Development Coordination Office, and thanks for being able to join at such short notice. And from there, we'll move on to our panel. We have Ms. Rina Krismo from the Norwegian mission. We have Ms. Diana Keta from UNFPA. Thank you so much. And we have Mr. Marcus Repnick from the Systematic Observations Financing Facility. If that is less familiar, it will be more familiar to you at the end of the meeting. That is one of our funds doing very exciting work. So thank you very much, and I'll ask the Deputy Permanent Representative to come to the lecture.
Excellencies, colleagues and dear friends, also from my side a warm welcome to the German House and to this year's annual Partnership Forum of the Multi-Partner Trust Fund Office. Let me start by saying this is for us a special occasion. We are not just convening another annual meeting, we're here to celebrate 20 years of the Multi-Partner Trust Fund Office. And congratulations to all on this important milestone. Over 2 decades, the MPTFO has become a cornerstone of financing for coherent, effective, and country-aligned UN development work. But as we mark this anniversary, we do so in full awareness of the serious challenges that the multilateral financial system is currently facing. The fact is clear: financing the UN's vital work has become increasingly difficult over the last years, and we find ourselves amid a dramatic liquidity crisis that affects delivery across the board. This has become very clear in all of the New York-based executive boards in the last weeks. We had 2 weeks ago UNDP, UNFPA, and UNOPS. Last week UNICEF, and I have no doubt we will also have the same discussion with UN Women this week. So if we want the UN to succeed, we must seriously rethink our financial architecture, rethink the institutional setup, but especially the question, how much are we willing to fund through the UN? And above all, how do we fund? The case for more funding is straightforward. Crises are multiplying, from violent conflicts to the increasing consequences of climate change, and with them, the number of people in need and countries in strain. In recent years, over the past 2 decades actually, total funding for the UN system has increased significantly. But now, unfortunately, the trend has reversed. We can't even talk about stagnation. We see a dramatic decline and a downward spiral. And the burden continues to rest on the shoulders of too few contributors. Broadening the donor base remains, therefore, a central task. This means engaging more governments beyond the traditional donors, but also mobilizing private capital and strengthening domestic funding. Crucially, all funding streams, regardless of source, must be better aligned with national priorities, as rightly outlined in the UN Sustainable Development Cooperation Frameworks. This alignment should be more than a principle. It should be a measurable criterion for the performance of UN entities and their respective leadership. Equally important is the quality of the funding. We're still working with financing models that are fragmented, overly earmarked, and too often driven by donor preferences rather than by the country's needs and the country's choices. What we need is a balanced mix, a mix that leads to the best system-wide value. Realistically, it must be a mix of predictable core resources, full funds, or foster better collaboration in the system, and targeted earmark contributions. But what constitutes that good balance? The funding conflict gives us a clear direction. It calls for at least 30% of all contributions to be core funding. These flexible resources are indispensable. They underpin the EU's capacity to respond to crises and to adjust to emerging challenges, especially at a time when the whole EU system is under political and financial pressure. Another key pillar of the compact is the 13% target for pool funding. My country is proud to be the largest contributor to pool funds. We rely on them to translate our political priorities into coordinated action on the ground, from gender equality to climate resilience. The United Nations new typology of funding modalities has helped improve visibility and understanding of contributions. It moves us beyond outdated dichotomies of core versus non-core, and it better reflects the complexity of today's funding realities. We know by evidence, investing in pool funds does pay off. It reduces duplication, it fosters cooperation among entities, strengthens humanitarian development and peace nexus, and it delivers real impact on the ground. Entities that engage in pool funds and pool funding and deliver accordingly should be recognized and they should be incentivized, both financially and in terms of performance evaluations. We also see great value in examining the potential of pool funding within the upcoming UN aid reform process. As the UN seeks to become more efficient, more coherent, more country-focused and less fragmented, pool funds will play an important role. And last but not least, let me highlight the vital role my government attributes to the resident coordinators in steering pool fund allocations, minimizing duplications, and in ensuring alignment with national priorities. With this, I hope I have provided some food for thought as we now turn to the focus of today's event, the future of pool funding. It is my great pleasure to now give the floor to someone who is instrumental in shaping this space and knows a lot about it, Alain Nourihou, my friend, Executive Director of MPTFO. Alain, it's yours.
Well, thank you very much, Thomas, for those words, and to my colleague Rod also for the facilitation. Let me start again with a special word of gratitude to Ambassadors Thomas Sennhausen and the German mission for hosting us today, and also for your steadfast championing of pool funding, and also you're pushing always to look at pool funding as an effective tool in support of development financing overall. Germany is also showing tremendous leadership, not just in support of pool funding, but also in the work that you do in many other aspects of the work of the United Nations, including the support of peace and security, but also in the fight against climate change. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is truly a pleasure to have you all here this morning, and we are very honored that you have responded positively to our invitations and you are here to participate in this dialogue. I see in the room many friends and colleagues, and also people that I have known for a long time in my various capacity in the past. The Partnership Forum of MPTFO is an annual event that brings together different partners to discuss collaborations and collective actions in our quest to achieve greater effective development. Such a dialogue is especially fitting in the current environment with persisting development gaps, increasing humanitarian need, and at the same time, as you have heard earlier now, with the growing pressure that we see every day on the availability of resources in the fiscal space in domestic budget, but also on the pressure that we also see on ODA as a whole. Ambassador Thomas was just talking about the resources that are dwindling. If you look at the total of ADA, 250 billions a year, of which there's about 74 billion coming through the UN. As of our last report, next report will tell you it's much less than that. Globally, the needs that is required to even go after our own SDGs is into the trillion. So the gaps is not just about what we don't get as through the UN, but it's also even what is there as ODA. So what we have to continue to work and we're trying to push here is beyond what we do to provide catalytic injection of funding in the system, is how to work collectively to help countries create that fiscal space so they can then jump to that level to try to deal with their own development as they move forward. So in general, one key principle that has always underpinned effective development actions is what we might call joint action through partnership. And as such, effective partnership remain at the heart of multilateralism, building on the recognitions that some challenges cannot be addressed by individual actions, and that the realizations of sustainable development for all will be better achieved if we work together. At the MPTFO, the work that we do to administer pool and financing mechanism cannot be achieved, therefore, without collaborations with each and every one of you. And for that, I want to thank you for the confidence and also for your trust. Allow me at this stage to update you on two key aspects of our work. The first is the 2024 results. Our financial or annual report has been completed. You'll be the first to get a hold of it today. I think there's a box behind it. And I will not go into all the detail, but I want to share with you a couple of highlights. So in 2024, we have administered and dispersed more than $1 billion through various pool funding mechanisms. That include trust fund and joint program. These resources have reached 116 program countries to support activities in climate and environment, activities on peace and transitions, activities also pertain to development actions. 41 UN agencies in 2024 have worked with us, and 83 non-UN agencies also have received assistance. Now, 1 billion is about the same level of resources that we dispersed the previous year. And also on an annual basis, we receive almost the same equal amount of resources. 2024, we dispersed 1.1 billion. We received about 960 million. But my worry is what Thomas was just talking about earlier. Given the trend that we see from January to May now, we know that next year here, it'll be difficult to predict that I'll be able to use the B word again. We might start to talk to you into the 100 million because the trend that we're seeing is already down. And that's something that goes along with what we are seeing in the markets in general. Now, the second update, beside our annual reports, is three principles that I want to share with you that will be building our effort on going forward. And we want to call you to join us with those principles. The first one is how we use efficiency to go to scale. MPTFO is consistently striving to improve its efficiency. For example, timely and accurate financial transactions underscore our commitment to all partners, with 93% of transfer processed within 5 working days of receiving the request. The office is also embarking on a new digitalizations of our processes to enhance speed and effectiveness. Ensuring efficiency in the AA functions has been key to supporting high-volume trust funds such as the Peace Building Fund, the Joint SDG Fund, the Spotlight Fund, and the CAFI Fund, just to name a few. The second key principle that we would like to continue to work on is transparency for enhanced accountability. In a global context of closer accountability scrutiny by all partners, a greater level of transparency is expected by all. From the Regional Trust Fund in support of the Special Program for the Economy of Central Asia, as called SPECA, to country-level pool fund that's so much of the PIN work of the regional coordinators and UN working together for fields such as the one we have in Somalia, Colombia, a thematic fund such as the Global Disability Fund, clear information on fund disbursement and receipt is critical to the confidence of all partners seeking to really enhance their support and their contribution. If people know exactly where the funding are and where it's gone and where it has come from, they are more likely to join and work together. They are also more likely, if they are a donor, to seek out that they can go to the parliament and report directly where the resources have gone. So transparency to enhance accountability is our second criterion that we work on. So the MPTFO Gate website continues to provide partners with a comprehensive digital platform for fund administrations, as well as real-time financial data information. So a high standard of transparency to enhance accountability. The third and last point that we would like to use, I was underlining particularly going forward, is innovation to adapt and to achieve results. Seeking innovation solutions through the experience we have gained over the past 20 years in both fund administrations will continue to be the bedrock of how MPTFO would like to move forward. I want to emphasize here that our ability to remain flexible and adaptable to respond to the changing context is also part of why we want to remain on the edge when it comes to innovation. To take a few examples, the Systematic Observation Financing Facility, and you hear from Marcus later, supported by an MPTF, is collating critical meteorological information and data to boost early warning system and help save lives, and is now seeking innovative way to raise much more needed resources. The Uzbekistan Vision 2030 Fund is making substantial progress piloting a new approach for effective asset restitutions, with recovery funds being used toward the SDGs in the country. With the Gali Fund for sharing or benefit from the use of digital sequencing information, new ways are being used to leverage revenue from the private sector on behalf of the benefit of member states who will need that going forward to deal with the biodiversity challenges that they're facing. So in summary, these are three of the key principles that will guide our actions going forward. Efficiency to deliver at scale, transparency to enhance accountability, and continue to innovate, solve problems, or to innovate to go after new opportunities. In closing, I would like to again to express our sincere gratitude to all of you for your support and your collaborations. We want to continue to count on that in the years to come. And I also want to take the opportunity here to extend a special thanks to all my colleagues at Team MPTFO for their dedications and the fantastic work they have done in the past year. I thank you very much for your attentions, and to you, Thomas, again for hosting us. I very much look forward to our deliberation. Thank you again. Ambassador of Mali, my brother Isaac, to come to the podium to share his view. Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity to participate in this meeting this morning. I would like to thank the UN Multi-Partner Trust Fund Office for organizing the forum and for the general mission to host us. A special thanks to my dear friend Thomas for being here and for the powerful word you had at the beginning. I would like also to thank Alain. What some people did not know in this moment, he was the deputy representative of the UN mission in Mali. And I would like to pay tribute to him personally today for the good job he has done in the country, particularly at the end when the relation with the mission was somehow difficult, but he managed very well for the successful withdrawal of the mission. So thank you very much. This dialogue is particularly important at this time, as we reflect on how we finance common goods and share goals like the SDGs. For a country like mine, Mali, undergoing under transitions, is particularly pertinent. Whole funding, our topic for today, is a critical element of UN support to social and economic development in Mali, bringing together partners to address shared challenges for the benefit of those most in need and provided a bridge to partner beyond our own borders. I would like to share with you three key elements that make pool funds an effective tool in Mali and beyond. First is a keystone of effective development efforts. The first thing is national ownership. And I take the example of Mali, where we are trying to do exactly this, national ownership. We want to participate in the development of our nations. And taking the example of the Secretary General's Peace Building Fund in Mali, like all countries working in PDF, as the Peace Building Fund Steering Committee, chaired by my Minister of Foreign Affairs, with resident coordinators. This helps ensure development intervention are better tailored to the national and local context, making them more effective. Second, proper alignment of efforts has been ensured by combining the steering committee of the three major funds currently active in Mali, avoiding duplications and making this effort more efficient as well as more effective. And third is the multi-stakeholder nature of the pooled fund, explicitly designed to bring together different types of stakeholders, from CSOs to local authorities to development partners. With more partners engaged and participating in relevant processes, these interventions are more sustainable, with long-lasting impact for those that need the most. Both the Spotlight Fund, which is 25 million since 2016 in Mali, and the Women Peace and Humanitarian Fund, over 4 million since 2016, have been active in Mali, supporting local and national authorities to protect vulnerable women and girls across the country. But our most consistent partners in pooled funds continue to be the Peace Building Fund, bringing over a decade of experience in the country to address peace and security issues at the crossroads. at the grassroots. In 2024 alone, these PBF programs with local partners reached 9 million people with a digital campaign to address fake news and hate speech. While support of 141 local and land and commission contributed to the peaceful settlement of at least 78 land-related conflicts. Another program with the Observatoire des droits humains et de la paix developed a framework to assessing electoral violence risk and a response plan. So I'm here to express our gratitude to our partners inside and outside this room for your continued support through PBF and other funds. Much progress has been made, but resources are still needed to support sustainable development in Mali and beyond, and the pool funding is a critical component of other efforts. I would like to end by expressing our gratitude to your staff in Mali and beyond. I know they are working in a very difficult condition in the country, sometimes risking their own lives, but they are there with us to support our vulnerable people, and we remain grateful for that. I thank you for your time, and I wish you a fruitful discussion ahead. I thank you.
Thank you, Excellency, for those remarks, and over to Helena. Thank you so much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here on behalf of Oscar Fernandez-Taranco, our Assistant Secretary General for Development Coordination, and also to carry the voice today of our resident coordinators and UN country teams around the world on the value of pooled funds. I'd like to start by thanking the Mission of Germany for hosting us today, and then a big happy birthday to Alain and the wonderful MPTFO team. It's really exciting to be here for your 20th anniversary, and I hope not to be back for your 40th, because hopefully I will not still be in this role at that stage. But I really hope that you come away from today's meeting with a renewed enthusiasm for pooled funds. Oscar was unable to join us today, but he asked me to open by really expressing profound appreciation to our member states who are here for their resounding expression of support for the UN development system reforms and for the resident coordinator system at ECOSOC the week before last. This is very important, particularly at this challenging time for multilateralism. And I want to repay that great expression of support by, in turn, giving you 3 points to reflect upon on pooled funds and their value. I think around now, with the great funding pressures that the whole UN system, and of course beyond the UN system, the international development construct and humanitarian construct are under such enormous pressure, there is, however, an ever more important need to support, as you mentioned, Excellency, national ownership in delivering on national sustainable development priorities as part of our strategic partnership with member states as they seek to drive transformational change in their countries in line with Agenda 2030. Pooled funding is the muscle for that. And I speak here as a former resident coordinator. Pooled funding is the muscle to that effort. It supports national ownership, it supports coherence, it supports consistency, it's effective and efficient. Now, I was going to give you 3 reasons, and the first is that you should trust me because I'm a former resident coordinator. That's not a very persuasive reason. But I have to say that when I was RC, I did see the transformative potential of pooled funds to unlock capacity and expertise from a range of UN entities, including specialized entities, who were able to bring to Uzbekistan, where I was based, their capacities and support in line with national priorities. The Uzbekistan Vision 2030 Fund, which, as Alain mentioned, unlocked frozen assets under a groundbreaking agreement between the government of Switzerland and the government of Uzbekistan, is now being invested. Those assets are being invested in people's development, in health, in education, and in SDG achievement. That's my first reason, trust me. But, but secondly, I want to underline that the model through which pooled funds work in the sense of joint programming model, it really enables us to bring the best of UN mandates and offer to governments, igniting further catalytic change. And here I want to shout out to the Joint SDG Fund, which leverages $19 for every $1 invested. Through leveraging impact bonds, blended finance with private sector, they have unlocked an additional 6.6 billion. So there's your billions, Alain. You can be proud of those billions because it's the pooled funds which help unlock them for sustainable development. That's my second reason to believe in pooled funds. Your third reason, and I want to give a shout out to Spotlight, an independent study showed that integrated programming models, such as those that the flagship pooled funds use, such as Spotlight, is 70 to 90, that's 70 to 90% more effective than single focused or siloed initiatives. You, our member states and partners, would like the UN to be more efficient and effective. This is the vehicle, and I believe that's why Germany trusts it. This is the vehicle through which to achieve those efficiencies. However, colleagues, and I don't want to end on a downer, but the funding compact that was so important and that you endorsed back in July 2024, it came at a critical time and provides a framework, as colleagues mentioned, for the UN and member states to come together to address concerning funding trends. It means working more effectively together, creating efficiencies, aligning, and it also requires member states to unlock quality strategic funding. But we do have problems with this. If we look at the trends, and they're in the MPTFO annual report, we see a continued decline in support to pooled fundings, and Alain mentioned his prospective bloom at next year. You still have 6 months to make that up, so now's your chance. Second, in 2023, core resources to UN agencies, funds and programs comprised only 12.7% of total voluntary contributions. Colleagues, although I'm a champion for pooled funds, I'm also a champion, and DCO is also a champion for core funding to UN entities to enable them to do their jobs. It has to be the appropriate mix. Thirdly, accountability and reporting do require further strengthening. The MPTFO report is a fantastic example, and we believe that the pooled funds are very transparent and timely, but we can always do better. Visibility standards, you've asked us to do more on that, and we will be focusing on that together with the flagship pooled funds this year. And fifthly, I think this is the most important, behaviour change is required on all sides to ensure that the funding compact targets receive the attention and focus that they deserve. So, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the pooled funds arena is a beautiful, diverse set of opportunity for efficiency, for effectiveness, and for results. We've seen that on the ground with the country-based pooled funds. We've also seen the global funds, the SURF, the Joint SDG Fund, the Peace Building Fund, working more in concert. And I know that many of you have asked us to be more strategic in how we ensure coherence, lateral coherence across the different funding modalities that pooled funds offer. And that is something that we are committed to working on together with the Multi-Partner Trust Fund Office, OCHA and other entities. So in closing, I'd like to thank you all for joining. Please remember those 3 reasons for which the pooled funds are so important. Please know that the Multi-Partner Trust Fund Office is a unique and wonderful flagship of support and acceleration for our country teams on the ground. It's really a unique value, and we, as DCO, as the Resident Coordinator System, are committed to strengthening and deepening our engagement to build your trust further and to help unleash greater results and greater impact at country level. These messages will be underlined at the Financing for Development Conference in Sevilla. There's going to be a side event hosted by Alain and the Dag Hammarskjöld Foundation with a delegation of a very small and lean delegation of resident coordinators joining. So please, if you're going to be there, join this discussion. because you can believe it even better when you hear it from the mouths of the resident coordinators on the ground. Thank you very much, and all the best.
Thank you for that, Helen. Thank you to all our speakers for those thoughtful remarks. So we'll move on to the panel component of the discussion. I'd like to invite Alain to take the stage. Ms. Rina Krisman from Norway also. Ms. Diana Keita, Deputy Executive Director at UNFPA. And we have Mr. Marcus Repnick, Head of Secretariat of the Systematic Observations Financing Center. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Helena, for those words, and also for helping to really amplify what we're trying to do in the coming weeks. And we will continue then to really work together on those 3 points that you mentioned. Now we have a quick panel discussions, which will be followed by open discussion from the floor. We have 3 concepts that we mentioned in my statement. Accountability through transparency is one. We also mentioned the need to push for efficiency to go to scale. And then we talk about the legality of innovations. So in these sections, we will have 3 colleagues to basically expand a little bit. They will have like 3 to 5 minutes at most to expand a little bit from their perspective, how they see those critical underlying factors advancing our world in general, but also from their perspective. So we will start with our colleague from the Mission Norway in New York, Ms. Rina Krisman, who is a ministry counselor who will want to really talk to us from their perspective as being a donor. The key to really move from accountability to trying to do transparency to really push more accountability in the system. So, Madam Councillor, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me. I'll put my pen down.
Okay.
Thank you for inviting me to be here today. I think for the ones of us who have followed the Multi-Partner Trust Fund Office and the history of pooled funding for the past many years, we consider the Multi-Partner Trust Fund Office to be the gold standard, as one of my previous colleagues said, for administering funds, actually. And why do we view it as a gold standard? That has, of course, first and foremost, one of the important things to do with transparency. Because transparency, in a way, secures accountability. It's like Helena said, trust me because I have been an RC. And then, you can always say, okay, trust us because we are good at accountability. But then, of course, you have to underpin that somehow, and you underpin it by transparency. And I think the gateway is one of the things that we like, and you also had a predecessor to gateway that I also thought was very good, actually. How does it help donors? Well, it helps us, of course, to improve maybe our decision making. It can, and you have already mentioned that pooled funding is maybe on the decline. Poor funding is on the decline. We have seen a very negative trend, but openness and transparency can help us. When we see that pooled funding works, we have to convince our politicians that that is actually the way to do it. And the funding compact, and I also actually thought we had agreed on that last year. I was happy that I learned that is actually even 2 years ago. It was in 2024 that we agreed on the funding compact. The funding compact and how to fund UN in a better way. And of course, pooled funds is one of the important things. And is transparency a prerequisite of accountability? I would really say so. It also goes to visibility. If you are transparent, you also make visible which donors fund it, why we should fund it, etc., etc. And that is also something that we have been very focused on from the donor side, actually, because if it sort of goes into, can really call it if you call it a black hole, the pooled funding, we still want to say that, okay, Norway actually did, fund this in Mali, and through the pooled fund. And it has shown results, etc., etc. So the visibility is a very important thing that I know that you also are working on daily, actually. And then I could also mention, the governance element, which is very important. But I think we can talk a little bit more about that later. Which of course is important at country level, the national ownership, donors, we can sit together and together with the RC normally now for some of that funding to coordinate, to make things more transparent. And then again, it's accountability, which goes both to the host country side and to the donor side. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you very much for those points, and I want to thank you again. And Norway remains a fantastic supporter of pool funding and also in general our work at the United Nations. And what you mentioned about governance was also really something very key. And I'm sure that when we open the discussion that will come about, they will be able to touch on that. To really implement anything that has to do with pool funding, you need, of course, resources, you need the admin, administrative agents function, but you also need partners who are going to put the program into implementation. That's why we have with us here Ms. Diana Keita, who is going to really talk to us a little bit from the perspective of being in Puno, on terms of what does it mean for them, UN agencies who are the ground implementing this program. How is it important for them to find way to increase efficiency? And from the perspective of UNFPA here at the UN headquarters, we also like to get your views about how you see any other aspect discussion that we have. So you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Anna. It's a privilege to be here with all of you, and a very great one when I know there's so many agencies benefiting from the pool fund. And the world is suffering today. Let me put it that simply. Say we love the word challenging, increasingly complex, polarized, and I can name it. We're just suffering. The women, the men, the children, the animals, the plants, everybody's suffering. You cannot even talk to one country without polarizing another country. So, and being a funds and program where we sit, we see there's more than a financing modality. The efficiency comes from the fact that we see as really strategic enablers that strengthen our ability to deliver on our mandate, despite everything that is happening around us. The world is suffering. Everything you say is wrong from any part you see in this world today. So having even this session here with all these colleagues and donors in the room, make us breathe a little bit that the world can continue going round. So for me, when we go through the QCPR 24, the last one, that asks us to put coherence, integration, collaboration. That's exactly what we put on now. It provides us that. It allows us to work in complementarity. And Elena said she's been RC, but all of us who have worked in countries, we know that, as many countries as difference happen in the world, and I think she mentioned it so well, but at least it allows us to deliver as one, to have one voice, and to reassure government. For me, the efficiency, not only we get our resources much faster, much quicker, but as well we are more able to deliver to the government in that very same way under the leadership of the RC. And this eve of UNAT, nicely celebrated by Italy on bottle of Nutella. I think this is important. We didn't have a Nutella bottle, but it is so important. It is so important to know that pool funds allow us to help government empower them through their national leadership allow government to discuss with us to say, look, this is what I want in a different way that you may want to do it. That for me is the most important. For us at MPTFO, for instance, 22% of our revenue last year, it was from the pool fund. We have approximately $150 million per year from pool fund. Can you imagine how many lives that save? How many baby can be born safely, etc. So, as I said, if you need an argument, how we need to have pool funds exactly because of those kind of baby. How can you make sure that you can deliver your baby safely? Because it's not only war, it's earthquake as well. There's other things. Go to Haiti and you see them, there's shelter as well. So for us, pool funding, not only for sexual reproductive health, gender equality, and population data, the data. To be able to know how many women are going to give birth, you need to be able to count them, to know where they are. I always have this data in my mind when the war started in Ukraine. They were, because it's a developed country, we had 350,000 women pregnant at that time that were not to give birth when the war started. Imagine how it changed the perspective immediately, how to give that support there. So, and more than efficiency, I think the pool fund helped us to innovate. Because we not only accelerate what we do, but as well, we are shifting from funding to funding and financing. So I'm very happy that you will be in seminar. I won't be, but our team will be there. And our team see the pool funding differently, whether you work in Latin America, in Europe, or in Africa. So I think the pool fund being there will be absolutely excellent for us and see how we can work differently. And I cannot finish my little point without talking about the innovation and talk about the joint SDG fund, the first development impact bond we had in Kenya, or in Lao PDR, the integrated national financing framework, etc. So I think plus this, we have the joint fund, the joint initiative like the Peace Building Fund, the Global Program to End Child Marriage, or the Spotlight that allow us to work together in complementarity and much, much better. That's the way to go. And I think because then the efficiency is channeled through local reality as well, all the way to the last mile. For me, it doesn't matter New York or Bamako. What matters is to get to Tombouctou. How do you get to Tombouctou? And how do you get to Goma when the war is raging everywhere? So that's what the Pool Fund can do, thanks to the UN system, together. Together, and I see to the togetherness, because it goes beyond the money. It goes with UNFPA using the WFP card or UNICEF card to get there, because they have a focal point in the future. So thank you very much. And if I may have another word from myself and all the sister agencies who are not in this room, we are very grateful to our donors. We are very grateful. Anything that we can do, just like Elena was trying to convince you, if I can convince you to continue that, you said the magic word. We need our core fund to make sure that we can do what we need to do. But the rest, we can do it together through the core fund. And thank you, we are very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for those perspectives and also for sharing your experience about how UNFPA benefits from funding in combination with other fundings. And as we have said before, I think Elena also said it, it's not only about pool funds. Core funding is equally required for agency to work, and not every single thing that is done has to be done with the pool funding. But when it's required, when you have multiple priorities coming together, or multiple players coming together, pool fund has shown that it can be of an impact. Now, last but not least on this panel, we go to Marcus Repnick, who's the head of the Secretariat for the SOF. Let me just say this before I hand him the microphone. There's about 100 million available for the portfolio on SOF. But that's way short of what is needed. That program can use 300 to 400 millions, not just for fun, but because it's needed. People probably die in certain places if they don't get the early warning that is required for them to move out of harm's way, if weather pattern changes and they can be caught on the violent weather, there will be less opportunities places if plane cannot fly because of lack of data about how the weather is doing certain areas or have commercial opportunities. But we could wait and incrementally mobilize those resources over the next 10, 15 years. But that's not what is required of us. That's why innovations is so important, how you make the step changes to where we are, trying to get resources quickly and now so that people can benefit. So I'm passing the floor so he'll be able to explain to you a little bit why and how we are working to move forward on this, and then have the floor to
Well, thank you very much. And a pleasure to be with you and you all. I know you started us off saying innovation is the bedrock for MPTFO. Now let me zoom in on the systematic observations financing facility, a UNPTF requested by the 193 countries of the World Meteorological Congress, established by WMO, UNEP. Okay. Innovation. Why do we need to innovate? How are we innovating? And what do we need to continue having success with innovation? Now, why do we need to innovate? I mean, it's a rainy day this morning. I'm sure most of you were checking the weather this morning. Now, what does it take to have a weather forecast? It needs supercomputers, billions of dollars. It needs highly sophisticated models. It needs increasingly AI. But all this is nothing without the real-time data coming from countries across the globe. Thomas, you're hosting us today here in the German mission. Germany has more reporting weather stations than the whole African continent. This is bad for Africa, but it's bad for the whole globe because weather doesn't know any boundaries. We need to close this data gap, and that's our mission as a UNPTF. How are we innovating? First, we recognize that the data generated by Mali are important for you, but to be blunt, they're more important for Europe or the United States, because the assets at risk in these countries are significantly higher. Then why should Mali indebt itself to generate this data? So first principle, we acknowledge the weather data generated by developing countries as a global public good, and we need a global public good funding mechanism. Grant money only, and very important, open-ended long-term support, not just an investment. Also covering the operating and maintenance costs, because the costs for operation and maintenance are much higher than the costs for investments. So first, global public good, long-term, open-ended, results-based grant funding. Second, we say goodbye to traditional technical assistance model, with individual, expensive international consultants flying in and flying out. We have created a twinning model. The Deutsche Wetterdienst, the German Weather Service, is supporting Madagascar. South African Weather Service is supporting Mozambique. Med Norway is supporting Mozambique. So long-term, open-ended twinning arrangements on a cost recovery basis, no margin. And last point, all this makes us as a low-cost fund. We are operating at 12% total overheads, including UNPTF trustee fees, including implementing entity fees, including the cost of my salary, the soft secretary, and technical assistance provided on a cost recovery basis, no margins. So this is how we innovate the way we operate in these countries. We now need to innovate fundraising. We are currently developing the soft impact bond that we aim at announcing at COP30. Although you mentioned we've been able to take off thanks to 12 pioneer funders, some of them in the room, including Norway and the Norway Development Fund, which is great but not sufficient. We need at least 200 million by the end of next year, and in total 400 million to continue operating at speed and scale. What do we want to achieve with the impact bond? First, we want to create impact. We and the countries supported by the bond are committing to increase the amount of data generated and international exchange by 500%. Second, I think Thomas, you also mentioned it, we want to grow the funder space, including the so-called non-traditional sovereigns, but also philanthropies and private sector benefiting from better weather forecast based on better data availability. And third, we want to front load. I already mentioned, we need the money now. The costs of inactions are high. If you go to our website, you will see an interview with Lord Nicholas Stern. He states that the annual socio-economic benefits of closing the data gap in developing countries corresponds to $5 billion a year. So with the bond, we want to front load the resources. Last point, vision. We want to announce it, or objective, we want to announce the bond in Belém. Where do we stand? We are, on the one hand, creating quite some interest of partners. The Nordic Development Fund just yesterday announced the booster grant. The first philanthropy is preparing a contribution. The World Bank stands ready to issue this bond and structure this bond with us and the contributing partners. And we have put together a very senior level development team of the bond, including the former World Bank Vice President and Treasurer. So all good, but what does it take now? What does it take to succeed? We need champions, advocates, and contributors to the bond being with us on stage in the day. Thank you very much, Alain, and thanks also for the excellent collaboration with you and the team. And thanks to the crowdfunders. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcus. So there you have it. Innovations to find new opportunities, efficiency to go to scale, but transparency clearly laid out here to really enhance accountability. Now we will go to the floor and get people's comments. So colleagues have requested that they'd like to speak very early on. I'm not sure whether we have in the room the Deputy Executive Secretary of UNECE. Good. You have the floor.
Very briefly. Morning. Thank you, colleagues. It's happy to be here about English with Geneva, and it's a great day to join you this morning. 2 points. For us, MPTFs were in a very unique way lend private and public funding. I give you an example of the United States Fund with hosted UNECE. I don't think any other fund out there has so many private monies from these corporations and foundations blended with governance resources. And the results are speaking for themselves. The money is flowing it, and private dollars keep coming back. And, they really know how to help. And the second point I'd like to make, and Alan referred to, thank Alan, giving a bit of an advertising in this SPECA fund, which is the new format. It's a regional fund established by the Central Asian countries in Azerbaijan, who start with regional cooperation in Central Asia, such as the colleague says, the Transcaspian, activity in the region. I think we will see more of regional funds going forward, and they're having to be collaborate with the MPTFO on making this one a success. So I'll be paying way for others. I'll leave it at that. And once again, thank you for this conversation.
Well, thank you very much for that. I am so to have you here. Can roll out to Dr. Oda, the head of secretariat, or a very important fund we have. This is the fund here. The Global Disability Fund, for which we need way much more resources to meet the challenges that haven't been, but totally have yet.
Thank you, Anand, and thanks for the invite and for this very important discussion today, and very timely, as colleagues mentioned, and to continue the chain of trust. My name is Anand. I'm the head of the Secretariat for the Fund, and I have been working on disability and development for more than 25 years. And it's only when I joined the fund that I could see things working at country level. Because the added value of the fund modality goes beyond money. It's about the power of convening all relevant actors. I see it on the ground, how we bring small grassroots organizations of persons with disabilities around the table with governments, making voice being heard around what needs to be done around their lives. I see the impact with the very little money, the catalytic money we give to positively bring the added value of the UN system around the complex issues about disability. Disability has been underfunded for so many years, and it has been suffering from siloed approach. It's a complex issue to be tackling because you have to influence the whole architect around the individual to make it work for them, and for them to be active. And only this modality of the funding that we work in that makes it work and impact the 1.3 billion people around us. As Alan mentioned, the fund is small in its funding envelopes, but it's high in its impact on people's lives. And we hope with this very challenging environment, we will be able to continue to demonstrate our capability to impact people, but also bring and convene the donors community. And we see that as an additional power, coming together to learn how to best invest their money around disability inclusion. And we welcome this discussion because it also shows the power of the pooled funding as a way of bringing to the world answers around complex issues on what works. Because this is also needed around this time to understand where to invest and why. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for that. This is a perfect case of, I would say, a commitment that we have entered to globally through different forums, and then this trust fund went through a reform to bring all of that together to streamline the architecture of our response and offer a very conducive platform through which we can achieve much more impact. So any kind of support that we can provide for that particular trust fund will be much more welcome from everybody. We have in the room the head of the secretariat of 3 of the funds that I mentioned today: Peace Building Fund, SDG Fund, Spotlight Fund. So if you want to intervene, this is your chance now to say the words. Perhaps we start with Brian and Lisa, and I don't know whether Erin is here. So let's go in that order. You can get the microphone to Brian here.
Good morning, everybody. Excellency, Alain. Let me just say a couple of words. First of all, to thank all the member states for supporting pooled funds in general, the Peace Building Fund in particular. I would like to underline everything that all of you have said, including about national ownership. I think in the current environment in which efficiency is the center of everybody's attention, it makes a lot of sense to be supporting pooled funding mechanisms, which by definition and by operation are incentivizing not duplication but coordination. Maybe a couple of other points that are related to the Peace Building Fund a little bit more specifically. The way in which pooled funding enables resident coordinators to lead the UN country team at country level is particularly important for peace building. Peace building is kind of by definition a nexus approach. It is taking a look at conflict sensitivity of all of the interventions that are being undertaken in support of a country and its people. So the national ownership point is really important, and pooled funding enables resident coordinators to strategically think about how the UN in its collective efforts working with government can identify activities that make the most sense. So when we're looking at the impact of reduced resources, pooled funding really makes a lot of sense. I certainly want to testify to the efficiency of the Multi-Partner Trust Fund Office. They've been a wonderful partner for us for years. So everything they've said about innovating, about digitalizing, about being transparent and the gateway is very valuable for us. The innovation point is important. Member states, you all know, and thank you for your support over recent years in the Fifth Committee and the General Assembly to achieve assessed contributions. So that's an important step towards predictability. And apparent parentheses here, when we're talking about efficiency, a lot of us spending a lot of time trying to raise money is not particularly efficient. We would much prefer to spend our time working with national partners to identify activities that are needed. And predictability is an important element of that. The assessed funding contribution to the Secretary General's pooled fund is important. Congratulations for making that assessment and a contribution to an existing instrument, not creating something new, not creating parallel siloed activities for peace building, but supporting an existing instrument is really quite important. And we're really grateful for the partnership with MPTFO as we think through how to manage this in a way which provides the necessary accountability to member states, whilst also being efficient and supporting the fund's work on the ground. Yeah, let me stop there, but thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Peace building funds, before we gave to Lisa, peace building is absolutely important. I mean, you just have to think about the world the way we are now. And I have seen that in actions in Mali, South Sudan, everywhere I have worked. And when the situation is like that, we need to double down and put much more resources into that. I'll just leave it to that and go straight down to SDG funding. So we have Lisa. We're happy to hear from you.
Sincerest thanks to the government of Germany, of course, and to all of you. The Joint SDG Fund has been defined by the Secretary General as the premier financing instrument for development. I'll echo Brian. As we look at UN80, as we look at the verticals to deliver to those being left behind in all of the countries around the world, to those babies that need to be born safely, we have to eliminate all these verticals and we have to unite around pooled funds and core funding. And I think there is something to be said about having an SDG fund that was created as part of the very reform that created the RC system. We are the other side of that coin. You have one leader at the top of that UN country team to bring that one offer to government, and then you have a fund that comes in behind it to help finance that integrated joint programming. And we really do stand as a host to all of the work around development. What's unique about the Joint SDG Fund is that we are led, owned, and governed by the agency's funds and programs. No other pooled fund has that. So you have 7 assistant secretary generals of the leading development agencies guiding every decision we make under the ultimate guidance of member states and the Deputy Secretary General. So we're not going apart from UNICEF, UNDP, UNEP, ILO, etc. We're going with. We go with and under their guidance, and we go in behind all of that mandate and power on the ground to deliver. We're not recreating it, and we're not doing projects that begin and end. We're doing transformative work that is meant to last and set foundations for decades. So, integrated national financing frameworks, as you know, a huge element of what we'll be discussing at FFT, like blended finance. That is the work we are spearheading. That is the $1 that becomes $19. I challenge you to find another pooled fund that can do that. And we do that because of the power of working together. It's UNDP, UNICEF, ILO in Indonesia that is making those SDG bonds powerful but also impactful on the ground. It's got to be both. A bond without the delivery mechanism to the most vulnerable is just a financial instrument that is on Wall Street. We're not Wall Street, we're the UN. We're not doing blended finance to make money, we're doing blended finance to reach the vulnerable faster. That's a piece of the Joint SDG Fund. So thank you so much, and then I hand to Aaron, I think.
Well, thank you very much for that clear SDGs. We're still chasing the date of 2030, but we have an instrument that is set up to really help us to support those efforts, but in a way that clearly shows, as Lisa has said, you cannot pursue the SDGs in a silo. It doesn't work. It may work to a certain point. At something you have to bring everything together. And this kind of funding that we have in the SDGs trust funds allow us to make those investments in the way that really push the integrations of how we work to be effective in actually pursuing the SDGs. With that, I'll go to Erin on the Spotlight Fund. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ella. Thank you, Excellencies and colleagues and friends. So Spotlight Initiative is the UN's high-impact initiative to eliminate violence against women and girls. Quick shout out to the European Union, who launched this initiative with us in 2017 with a 500 million euro investment. We were launched with 3 really easy goals. The first was to eliminate violence against women and girls, so easy. The second was to reform the UN. And the third was to drive change across all sustainable development goals. So really easy, and we've achieved all of them, so we're good. We are entering our second phase, and we've learned a tremendous amount from this incredibly ambitious initiative. I've been working on the issue of ending violence against women and girls basically since the womb, but also professionally for about 30 years. And I've never seen an initiative like this have kind of quick impact on a complex issue like ending violence against women and girls, like the Spotlight Initiative has had. And this is because of the pooled fund nature of Spotlight Initiative. What Spotlight Initiative was able to do was cast a large net across the UN system, gather what works best in the system, weave it together in service to communities. And really understand that by identifying what the UN can do well under RC leadership and coordinating that holistically to deliver, we can have a meaningful impact in a relatively short period of time. And that impact can happen and can linger even after the funding ends, which is what we're seeing now. And we can show that this will result in significant domestic investment as well. In 3 countries alone, we've seen $50 million in additional domestic investment in ending violence against women and girls because of Spotlight Initiative interventions. This is tremendous in an issue like this. So we really cannot say enough. The one thing I would say is that we have so much to learn from each other. As I hear Brian and Lisa and Marcus and others talk, I really value and I'm grateful for all of the learning from all of my pooled fund colleagues, and I just know that there's so much more we can do together, and I'm looking forward to learning more and to continue sharing lessons. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Like, we're very big at the beginning, and we need to continue to really push to get more resources, especially as companies push forward now to put their own strategy together and then expect our support. Now the floor is wide open to everybody and anybody who want to intervene. Questions, comments are all welcome. Raise your hand very high so I can see you. We start with from here. Man, you have the floor, and then behind you, then behind you. If you can quickly introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Åsa Andersson. I'm from the Swedish mission. And congratulations to the 20th anniversary, Helen. And Sweden has been a long-standing supporter to your office. Has also very, very supported to joint funds or pooled funds. And many, due to the reasons that have all been watched here this morning. But still, it's a little bit puzzled because, as you said, Alan, 1 billion out of 74 billion are dispersed to your WODAD. And I've been sitting through the board's meetings for the past 2 weeks, and every, the commitment to these kind of joint pool funds are actually there. They voicing it, and I'm not sure they're living up to what UNSPA has in the land. Maybe you are the lead agency of almost 30% of it being going to finance. So for me, I'm just wondering what else is needed. You have the donors' commitments. At least many of us are committed to the funding, but at least in my experience from the field where I've been funding a lot of these kind of joint programs, it's really a little bit us driving the whole thing. It's not really the UN partners that are coming together to us and saying, okay, let's do this, and the people would like and support us in this kind of doing. And so I just wondering what else is needed for something that at least our government believes it's really the way forward. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Let's take a couple more comments and we'll come back to everybody in the panels. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Alan. Good morning, colleagues, excellencies. I'm Kawoi Ashley. I'm a senior foreign policy advisor on programs from the Permanent Mission of the UK. I join with my colleague here in congratulating you on your 20th anniversary. The UK is a very long-standing partner of the office. For all the very reasons you so carefully outlined, we believe in the cause of pool funds. And so my question, therefore, is rather forward-leaning and future-thinking. We would very much like to inquire whether the office is involved in the thinking around UN80. Are you feeding into that process? What are the possible implications of UN80 on the office and its work? An overarching theme here is the fact that ODA is going down. It's unfortunately a reality of the time. Are we putting any mitigation measures in place to respond to this so that the pool funds can continue to deliver for everyone in need? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your questions and for coming. Behind, yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Igor. I represent the WHO Specialized Agency. And congratulations to yourself, to the team, doing a great job. So we're witnessing exactly kind of very open, transparent processes on every request on a daily basis. Actually, it's 24/7, kind of, especially on Sundays when you receive a notification of the office, getting transfer is made. So it's happening even on Sunday. So this is exactly kind of congratulations. Yeah, just 2 points. One, it's exactly about efficiencies. So these efficiencies require capacities and tools. So, and this is exactly where we all, the UN system at the global, regional, and country level, are doing our best, again with the support from the MPTFO office. WHO is leading one of the processes specifically dedicated to capacity building at the country level. So, because this is exactly where the needs are. So, me being the WHO representative for some decade and really have, like, comparing to what was 10 years ago when you had like pooled fund on the table and when you have your staff coming, oh, no, please, we better do it kind of alone. Now it's totally different situation, really. So when there is a possibility, you have your team really encouraged to do something with this one. And second point, with regard to the visibilities, also from the WHO side, we have a corporate approach specifically to this interagency pooled fund. So we really bring in these funds to our governing bodies, explaining and to showing casing and same at the country level. So our teams are really keen to contribute more in this visibility and to bring these funds to more kind of wider space as much as possible. Yeah, thanks and appreciation.
Well, thank you very much to you and WHO for your very active engagement on pool funding. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Isabella Navas from United Nations Environment Program. I'm very happy to speak after my WHO colleague, so you have the point of view of two UN agencies. So UNEP it's participating, contributing, benefiting a lot from the MPTF, and we're very happy about programs that we run through the MPTF. We have the UN RAN, we have the SOF that was discussed here today, and we are proud members of the Joint SDG Fund, the core group, and work with them for the environmental aspects of the Joint SDG Fund. You were mentioning the Kali Fund. That is an excellent example of innovation where we can bring the private sector into the digital sequencing of nature, basically. But this digital sequencing benefits people, benefits indigenous peoples and local communities. So to echo the point that was made by our colleague Jan, we're talking about people here that are benefiting concretely through the joint work of human agencies that is possible via the fund. So we think that these coordination mechanisms, such as the fund, should are a perfect example of the focus to continue also in the context of more efficiencies and in the context of less resources. Coming to the SOF that was mentioned today here by its director, UNEP is one of the two agencies that are at the base of the SOF. We're very proud of that. we're very proud that supports these developing countries and small island developing states using closing critical observation data gaps that save life and increment readiness towards extreme weather events, and we will have more and more of those. We are also particularly supportive of the soft impact bond as a critical opportunity to scale financing in an innovative method, or an innovative way. And we stand ready to contribute to work more with the MPTF and with the soft in any way possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The engagement and the commitment. Any more hands? Yes, at the back, the UNDP.
And happy 20th. I wouldn't give you a day more than 15, Alam, but just to say on behalf of UNDP, we have been a proud underwriter of the Multi-Partner Trust Fund Office for the 20 years. Our administrator, who hails from Germany, who left yesterday, has always been very proud to every executive board session that he has spoken about the role that UNDP plays in underpinning the Multi-Partner Trust Fund Office. To reiterate many of the same messages that colleagues have said about the interdependence between the core resources and the flexible funding through multi-partner trust funds, and I think Ambassador Thomas raised it. You know, what is that mix? What is that right mix? Is exactly that question, and I don't know if we as an international community do have that balance in check. The funding compact, of course, goes a long way to help us to try and define it, but I think more is needed to actually look at this not so much as a zero-sum game, but certainly as complementarity, because there is a very clear interdependence between the two. Small anecdote and a confession, as much as other colleagues have spoken about the country level benefits of multi-partner trust funds, myself as former UNDP representative in Kenya, it was one of my last acts as an outgoing resident representative to sign the MOU for bringing into existence the multi-partner trust fund for Kenya, together with the RC. It was the last act because it was coinciding with the cooperation framework, not because of a delay. And this is out of a conviction that having this vehicle to allow the system to speak with one voice is what will make the UN relevant at country level. But I reiterate the balance between the various streams of funding as a critical one. Thank you.
No, thank you, Walid. That is a very pertinent point. Finding the right balance between our resources toward core and how much should go to full funding is the right questions. And I think it goes in line with the query that our colleague from Sweden was raising. Very important questions. You can look at $1 billion versus 74 billion, but then the discussions has to really happen on an arbitration manner as we see where priorities are and how things get governed. And everybody in this room, agencies from individual agency and DCO are aware of the importance of using the pool funding mechanism, but they also in awareness that certain things are gone after using, I would say, core funding, because all of them in the compact. What is the progression line or where we go? This is something that we have to continue to discuss, and the key will be to have an agility that in country A, you may have a huge tilting toward pulling the funding, whereas in country B, you might see tilting. We have to accept that it will be diverse in it, because that's how we're able to respond carefully to the situation on the ground. But very good question from Sweden, and very nuanced answer that was provided by UNDP. But it is a question that stays in our head as well. Let me take two more. There's somebody standing on the back, and I'll come back to you, sir. Please introduce yourself in the back, and we'll come back to you, gentlemen here.
Thank you, Len. My name is Priya Alvarez. I come from US Women, the coordination division particularly, and I am very happy to be here today. I'm very proud of the work that the Multi-Partner Trust Fund Office is doing, and all the funds, all the multiple trust funds that are part of that. And in particular, I was very happy to hear, of course, the spotlight, the representative, but also the joint SDG fund and the peace building fund, because all the three of those are a good example of how to mainstream gender equality and empowerment of women and girls, and to bring this approach as an enabler for peace and also a requirement for achieving the SDGs. And I want to join also the voices of the Deputy Permanent Representative of Germany and of Diane Keita from UNFPA, in that we need to have a focused intention on making sure that systematically gender equality is an element of multi-partner trust funds. From UN Women, it's difficult for us to be everywhere, to reach out to everybody, and we know that if there is not that systematic push, it's very easy that that falls through the cracks. And this, my intervention is more a call for all of us here in this room today, other entities, donors, the Multi-Partner Trust Fund Office, just to bring this to the fore, to make sure that there is always secure funding for the plight of women and for gender equality. And I know that everybody is making efforts, but there is such a huge pushback that I thought of coming in and make this reminder. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. I see a colleague from Sweden is leaving. I was going to say something about you, but you have. I want to thank you, Sweden, for your commitment and your support to our office in particular, also to all the trust funds that we have, and we very much value your contribution, your point you made about keeping an eye on the country office level to see how we can move much more toward concerted effort. Is well noted, and I want really you take with you this commitment for ourselves. So go well. It was nice to have you. Okay. So I think we have. Yes, please, sir. Let's be brief now so that we can.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Henk-Jan Brinkman, Permanent Observer of the International Development Law Organization. If I'm not mistaken, I didn't hear much about CCAs and cooperation frameworks. And I think there are really important instruments for RCs in particular, of course, to bring not only the UN together, but also other actors, none. The PR Mali mentioned CSOs and etc. But if could I ask to what extent that is happening at the field level? So to what extent are non-UN entities, IGOs, bilaterals, CSOs, part of the discussions of CCAs and also part of the frameworks that the UN has, that the RC brings together, of which pooled funds are really an important tool to bring everybody together. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Let me just, for the interest of time, try to address some of the key questions. I'll come to that. A colleague from the UK has raised an important question. And UK remain a very important partner to MPTFs and also joint program, not only with the volume of resources that you provide to the trust fund over the years, but also the interest that you bring in actually pushing for much more, I would say, efficiency at the country level through joint efforts. I have seen that, not just here in my role as Executive Director of the MPTFO, but my previous roles as RCs on the ground. It has always been a key role that you play as part of the group of donor community to push for that. Your point regarding whether we engage in the UN 80 is we are not, I'd say we are not a member of the task force of the Secretary General. I think that is a very clearly laid out process that we all know who are the members of that. But nevertheless, we are engaged in the sense that we provide our ideas and we provide input into what we do so that at that level, the channeling of those kind of lessons that we learn will actually be used. And when we talk about UN at 80, I think one of the points from the Secretary General's clear laid out of plan going forward of how we go about that was about efficiency again. And today, I guess one of the point we talked about was on efficiency. And although we work at a scale that may not be a scale of reform that you might think about, lesson learned from what you can do at the scale can certainly be replicated or actually look at in terms of how we expend on our work. So we remain and continue to provide whatever input is required to our colleagues who are working directly. And we take that to heart as well in terms of how we are going to move forward. With regard to the resources level going down, our call here is that we are pleading everybody, including the UK, not to really take the resources down any further than they are. And so our first advocacy is don't, if it's possible, do not reduce the resources, maintain them that way until we get through the situation. But the second part is that we are trying to also diversify the way we look at full funding. We have the soft that was discussed. We talk about the Cali fund, we talk about the CAFI fund, we talk about other ideas, let's say the one in Uzbekistan. These are instruments that look at all the resources other than getting bilateral resources directly to fund them. These were things that we were not pushing maybe 15, 20 years ago, but now we are pushing very aggressively as a way to support those member states and those entities who might want to really find that solution. So we are offering our lesson learned as a solution to those new type of work going forward. So it may not be exactly the same kind of resources, but lesson learned and what we learn can actually be good. This is how we are going about getting ourselves ready. But as you know, sir, this kind of thing takes time to get caught up. So in the meantime, we require still the resources from the bilateral and multilateral to come through to those agencies to be able to really pull them together in going forward. To your questions about country teams, yes, that's happening. CCA is engaged with all the UN agencies. In many instances, there are also civil society that are involved. At the end, the cooperation framework is not signed by civil society. The cooperation framework is a UN instrument. It gets signed by the agencies. And I have personally been engaged in that at least 3 or 4 times in the past decade. So that is actually something that is ongoing. Any other comments on the floor? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. My name is Deb Warren-Smith and I manage the ELSI Initiative Fund for Uniformed Women in Peace Operations. And we work very closely with the MPTFO team. I guess we're one of the 2 smaller trust funds that are housed by UN Women, so I build on the comments from Pierre. I just have one question, and this is an observation to the, we hear about we're in a very strict funding environment. So we're looking at funding available for development assistance, etc., dwindling. But we are also looking at a massive increase in military spending. How do we work with our member states, our donors, to really look at how effectively could some of that funding be used, whether it's for gender equality, whether it's more in the kind of the development nexus, but I just throw that out as an observation in terms of where we are seeing funding being spent 2024, 25 and onwards. And just also our thanks to the MPTFO. We are a new fund, a sister fund, and we have had really strong support with some of our really innovative funding mechanisms. So our thanks especially go out to Bravo, who I know is not here, but he's probably online. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. I think I leave that to some member states to answer that questions. And we're coming down to the end of our dialogue now. If there's no other comment, I'll give the floor to my panelists here for a couple of minutes each, and then I'll give the chance to Thomas and Ambassador Issa to react, and then I'll say a concluding word and bring the meeting to a close. So let me start from this time. We'll start with you. Marcus, any closing couple of minutes word, and then we'll come to you, Jenny, and then with God we'll come. Go ahead. No, sorry.
I picked up two phrases of today's session. First, the power of pooled funding to address complex issues. How true. Second, the power of working together. How true. And I know the Swedish critic has gone, but I would like to respond to a question: what else is needed? Your help as member states is needed. In our case, join us for the bond in developing, structuring, and hopefully contributing to the bond. And second, help us as traditional donors to reach out to non-traditional. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very simple. I think for the pool fund to work, for the pool fund to get attraction, we need the member state, the donor group, and the recipient, just like you did, Your Excellency, this morning, showcasing why you're giving that, and you showcasing what you do with that money. If you don't do that publicly all the time, people will not know what is happening because there's so many other things happening around us. That would be my plea for the pool fund to get going on. In the UN, we know what we are doing. We are excellent in what we do, but we need you, member state, to get your nice act together and talk about it every single forum you have the occasion. Thank you.
Ms. Wheeler?
Thank you so much on that. I have 2 points, but it's a little bit opposite of each other. One is the UN aid thing, and efficiency gains, and all the funds that we have today. Do we have too many funds? Should we have just a couple of really good funds? Should we have the joint SDG fund focusing on the SDGs? I saw the peacekeeping fund leaving, so we will not mention it. I'm just kidding. We will mention that as well. Do we need that, for peace and stability, etc., etc.? And then maybe a humanitarian fund. We have the staff, of course. And then maybe we need also a couple of, specialized funds in addition, but still, because there has also been a plethora of funds. And we also have at one point, of the day to look at that, if we can make it better. It doesn't mean that it doesn't necessarily mean that it will be smaller. It will maybe just be better, actually. So that is one thing. And then I will say something that was in the opposite direction. How do we get more funding? And how do we get more in funds? And the ones who have heard me sort of in the quote for the joint SDG fund, for the RC fund, called the Multi-Purpose Trust Fund, will know that I think the Secretary General and the Deputy Secretary General and the UN side, we were talking about the donors, that we have a job to do, but I think also the UN at the highest level have a job to do. I think, for example, that it was a missed opportunity that the Secretary General and the Deputy Secretary General didn't sort of point to the joint SDG fund as the fund to fund the Sustainable Development Goals. It just more took the backstage and donors and Lisa and her team and you of course had to fundraise for it and try to make it relevant and show to the results, etc., which has been very, very good. But I still think that the UN leadership at top level, they have to raise it with our politicians when they meet with Germany, when they meet with Norway, when they meet with Mali or UK or the others, because in the way you are speaking to the converted when you are in this room. It is also when you speak to our politicians that you have to get that message through, of course. We try to get that message through, but it's also important what Guterres and Mohammed says. Thank you.
Very good for those points. Excellent points. We'll go down to you first.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank you once again for taking this initiative. Thank also our gentleman for hosting us. I would like to thank all the participants. I really like the meeting. We have learned a lot. I want to have two comments. The first one, the issue of accountability and the issue of transparency was raised by some of the journalists. I would like to assure everybody that in the case of Mali, this is one of our priorities actually. In addition to national ownership, we want transparency and accountability. And in that regard, We have a national committee, actually, called it the steering committee. It's chaired by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and also by the UN resident coordinator in Bamako. We work closely together to define the projects, to select them, and in the implementation we work together. And from time to time we organize field visits to see the impact of the project on the living condition of our people. Where I put two examples: the management of land or the management of conflict among our communities. Your contribution has a huge impact on how to bring people together to discuss about how we can make peace, how we sustain peace, and how to provide, how to meet the basic need of our population. I visited Gao, for example. We see the impact on women and children, on how, your money is impacting the life and bring people together. So I think I am ready to participate in any meeting show the case is there. And if you want to visit Mali, you want to see the project, I am ready to organize that. So your money, your fund is absolutely needed. And the last point I would like to make, we don't want to continue to depend on these resources. We are ready as state to contribute. In addition to being a beneficiary, we want to be a donor one day. So help us get out of space because it's a global goods. And once we get there, believe us, we will contribute to the stability in the region, but in the stability of the world. So please continue to sustain us. We will make it. Let us put our effort together. Donors, UN, and the recipient country. It's possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Now it's almost nothing left for me. First of all, thank you very much for coming. When I thought in the beginning 20 years, wow. But actually I've been 15 years also in the pool fund business, in various positions. And I've seen three things. First of all, when I started on the humanitarian side, take the knowledge, but not only the work. Desperate, why is protection not working? Why do we fund in all the organizations protection? And they're also good at it, but it doesn't really work, because I think ultimately we continue to work in silence, and that was really only transcended once we worked into the food funds. The second one is, my second big experience was COVID, when we tried to get aid into refugee camps. You were in South Sudan, we talked about it often. How did we make it successfully? It was the food funds. It was the only way to do it, and it was extremely efficient. And thirdly, Marcus, you said, I think, I don't see any part of the UN system that is so innovative, so catalytic, and so just moving us forward in the way we think partnerships. So I think there's every reason to do it. So why is it not working? I think it requires behavior change in the system, and it requires behavior change with donors in particular. And I think it is counterintuitive. We, as donors, want to see visibility. What we get from you is impact. So the intuition of donor is, I want to see something with a parachute falling down on needy people. That's important, but it isn't the impact that we actually need both. So I think, how do we can change the behavior of donors, and how can we transcend the logic of the funds and programs? I think it doesn't work by force, it can only work by incentives. And I think that's what I said in my introduction. I think we need incentives in the UN system, that those who work with pool funds, not as an add-on, but as an integral part of the strategy, are rewarded, and that their actions incentivized. The same, we have to find donors. How can we award good behavior? And I think this is something we have to discuss in 180. Maybe we have to come back to a bigger conference where we think our own partnership with the UN, something that, that good behavior is visible. And I think this kind of thing we need to do in the next few months. Thank you very, very much for giving me the last word. I truly believe in this system, and I think core funding and full funding, I think, it go hand in hand. What the mix is, as you rightly said, it depends where you are, it depends on the context, but we really need both much, especially in this situation. Thank you again very much for coming, and Allah, to you and your team, many, many thanks. What you did and what you're doing, I think, is just remarkable, and it's a happy birthday.
Thank you all very much for coming. I will not add anything to that. Has been said. As we said, the last word were very, very full of wisdom from what we're saying in terms of national engagement and commitment and incentive and behavior, but also how to make sure everybody's interests get aligned despite where we might be coming from, whether you're a donor, whether you are MPTFO, you are UN agencies, you are a secretariat, or you are even the beneficiary community. Our interests need to be aligned so that each of us in our role will find a way together. We remain at your disposal. We are your tools, and we remain at your disposal to make it work. And thank you again, Germany, for hosting us. And with that, I want to declare that we have come to the end of our meeting. I want to wish everybody an excellent rest of the day, and à très bientôt. Bye-bye.